billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Assalamu alaikum. My name is صادق Demani. I'm 19 years old. I'm born and bred in London. Lived here my whole life. Studied here from primary school and now into university, where I'm at the University of Birmingham in my second year doing a Bachelor of Science in Economics. I was born into a Shia family from birth, and alhamdulillah still going as a Shia. And I do my best in whatever I can do in my capacity to try and serve the Ahlbeit علیهم السلام in any shape or form possible, and it's something that's been instilled within me since I was very young. The Western society is one that I adore. A lot of people would say, you know, why do you like it? Because, you know, there's too much haram going on, as some say. But for me, it's where I was born, it's where I've been brought up, and I've come to admire it. It's challenging, there's no doubt. Our religion within the Western society hasn't quite yet been integrated fully, but it's slowly getting there. And I think the challenges that we face within the West have led to myself and indeed my family and friends to become better Muslims, because we get challenged every day. Simple things like seeing, you know, women not dressed in the best ways, and equally for women seeing men dressed not in the best of ways. It challenges us to refocus and to remember God at all times. And as a result, I think it makes us stronger. In terms of communities as well, it bridges us together because we like to be within our communities, especially within our religion. So being in the West has given that opportunity for us to come together, create a stronger bond, and I think it's only worked best for us rather than negatively. In terms of participating within groups, alhamdulillah, being in London, I've had a crazy amount of opportunities. Something that my parents made sure I was involved in from a very young age, be it from playing badminton to basketball, which was on the sports side, to joining theatre groups to get technical lighting involved within me, and then moving on to more Islamic-based stuff, which then turned towards organisations of youth clubs, to organisations of charity events, to seminars, to lectures, and then eventually starting to try and develop the English delivery for the Shia audience in terms of its poetry, in terms of its lecturing, kind of taking a different approach that others may not have done before, trying to break the ice within communities, because there's a lot of friction with English recitations, and only over the past 5-6 years, with a lot of hard work from various people, have we been able to kind of progress and get to a stage now where it's almost abnormal for there not to be an English recitation within a majlis, which is a fantastic achievement. So I've just tried to do whatever I can, be it all minimal and in the most basic format, to try and spur this movement on, so that come when our next generations arrive, it will be like it's the norm. My father and his brother, when they were little kids, they used to recite in Urdu. They were initially from East Africa, in Uganda. And in 1972, they came over to England. And when they came here, there wasn't such a thing as cassettes. There was no DVDs, there was no iPod. So they would actually go around to the different centres, listen to the reciters, and write down the words, because obviously you can't just go online and get them. So they had this burning passion within them, I imagine instilled from their parents as well, my grandparents, to recite. And they were doing it in the language of Urdu. So when I was growing up with my older brother, my father wanted to get us involved as much as possible. And I kind of really enjoyed it. I think at that age I loved the limelight, I loved being the focus of attention, and maybe that's what initially drew me in, who am I to know. So my father gave me my first piece, and I remember it was Jane wale Karbala ke Karbala le chal mujhe, which in Urdu is like, we're on our way to Kerbala and this is what's going to happen. And my dad still recites it today on a regular basis. And I kind of picked it up and I was like, okay, cool, recited it. My dad told me what it meant, so I didn't, I knew what was going on. But then I asked him and I was like, where's the English stuff? I don't speak this language. I can just about speak a little bit of French, but I speak English. Where's the English? So my dad was like, there isn't really anything there. He found one person whose name is Nazim Ali, who's now a dear friend of mine, and he was, from what I could see, the first person that came out with any sort of English recitations in a very Urdu Pakistani style, but he was writing in English and reciting them. So my dad gave me a piece from his, which was 3 stanzas called Saviour of Islam as Hussein. And it's like when I was a youngster, it's the only thing I'd ever do. I'd be walking around the house reciting, and I had the same copy. I've still got it. I dropped it in the mud one time and it's still there. So that was the first kind of English recitation I ever did. And I think I was about 6 or 7 when I was in Syria and I did it. And it was like an amazing, amazing feeling. And then time went on a bit and I felt this English needs to get involved a bit more. We need to bring it into centres. We need to make it a bit more involved. So there was a big scheme at my local centre, which was trying to get a compilation of English poetry, not even nohas or latmiya, but just English poetry about the Ahlul-Bayt, but it didn't quite take off. And then I felt, you know what, let me try and put pen to paper. So I think it was about 12 or 13. And, well, I wrote a piece called The Martyrs of Kerbalā, the Grandsons of Rasulullah. When I look back on it, I'm like, well, that was a really bad piece, but you have to start from somewhere. And Sheikh Osama al-Attar was actually reciting in my local centre, and he was an English reciter as well, Arabic and English. So he initially introduced this concept, and everyone was, you know, mesmerised. We had heard it before from a couple of other guys who had given it a go, but didn't quite go to plan. So once he would finish, I then got the opportunity to recite my own piece, and he was hugely supportive of it. But unfortunately, I think the community weren't so much. They were very against it, which upsets me even till today, because it's still there, it's still pertinent. But my dad stood by me, and that really kind of spurred me on. And he was saying, you know, keep going, keep writing. Every Muharram, then every Shahada, then every Mawlid, anything, go and write. And alhamdulillah, from there, I've just tried to, you know, basic things. Basic writing, basic words that anyone can understand. You know, no complex sentences, very heart-striking, simple, basic sentences that people can connect with immediately. And from there, it's got to where it has, and it's still got a long way to go. Breaking the ice within communities and then bringing in the real poets and the real reciters, I then leave it to them. But alhamdulillah, it's hugely inspiring and hugely, you know, fulfilling when you receive a message from a revert, for example, from the UK, from Ghana, you know, loads of places we've got messages from, and they say thank you for reciting in English and writing in English, because in our local language, be it Ghanaian, be it, Malay, they'll be like, we haven't got any of this material, but we know English. And the fact that you're writing in English and the other guys are writing and reciting in English, it's amazing, because that means we can now connect. And I think for the Ahlbeyt Alayhim السلام, language is no barrier, time is no barrier, so we need to make sure that we keep churning it out. The first piece that I ever wrote was entitled The Martyrs of Kerbalā, the Grandsons of Rasulullah. And just trying to think back to a few of the words. Like I said, it was very basic. I was very young at the time. And the aim, my dad said to me as a starting point, pick a scenario within Kerbalā. So I said, well, my knowledge then wasn't great. Even now it's not great, but I was like, you know, I don't know enough about, for example, Ali al-Akbar or Ali al-Asghar or Qasim or Abbas. So he said, fine, do one generically for all of them. So that's where the chorus came from, the Martyrs of Kerbalā, who were also the grandsons of Rasulullah. So for example, some of the words were, "O Ali Akbar, you were so brave, you fought so gallantly on the plains. Your lips were parched just for water, alhamdulillah, you've died as a martyr." So that was for Ali al-Akbar. Then another verse was for Hur, where it said, Hur al-Riyah, you made the right choice to get away from Yazid and that noise, and then you died as a Shuhada, your name will live in Kerbalā. So just basic sentences that I think everyone can connect with. And it just went through the various companions and family members that were martyred. And that was the first piece I wrote. I wouldn't define any khadim of the Ahlbeyt as successful. I would merely see it as a duty upon each of us. You know, be it the person who gets the microphone in their hand, be it the person who's controlling the microphone in the sound room, be it the person who's pinned up, you know, the different pictures across the Husseiniya, whatever it is, we're all on the same playing field serving Ahlbeyt Alayhim السلام. In terms of getting the stuff kind of out there and forming into what it's become, I think it took a lot of perseverance. It took a lot of, how can I say, guts to get through the negative comments and refocusing what the ultimate intention was. Because I think if your intention is sidetracked, then you'll struggle to get through the negativity that comes through, and there's a lot of it. You make one mistake and people are on you like a pile of bricks, and it's crazy. You're thinking you're doing something, you know, very helpful to serve, so you would think that people would appreciate your services because you're doing them for free. But unfortunately, when you make a mistake, when someone doesn't like something, they post negative things about you in public, they speak about you, this and that. And you just got to remember, you know, who are we serving? Ahlbeit Alaihem السلام. Each of them were oppressed. It's only right that their followers are then treated in, unfortunately, some of the same manners. So I think perseverance and a huge passion behind it. I wanted to see this revolution, if you like, take place where English would become a regular thing, because it is one of the main languages. It's more commonly spoken than, well, they say Chinese is the most commonly spoken language, but in terms of one across the countries, it's English. So when we look at English, the fact that we hadn't delivered anything there yet kind of refocused a goal and aim of mine, which was to get it out there in that style. And I think it took patience as well, because you were never going to get it within a year. You know, the first one I wrote, like I said, was about 12 or 13, when I was 12 or 13. I'm now 19, and that's 6 years, and only recently has English started to become somewhat a norm, but it's not yet completely transformed. You know, we've only scratched the surface. But alhamdulillah, we keep going, we remain patient, we remain, you know, on top of things, and I think it will go far. The Shia community are already a minority, and I think it's of utmost importance for every single one of us to play a part within the community. Keeping them together, keeping them active, be it in terms of physically active or even mentally active. Whatever we can, we need to help one another. And I think one of the areas that I'd like to think that I've been able to influence is through motivational speaking. I saw, my cousin actually told me, he said, whatever talent you have, whatever talent anyone has, make sure you serve the Ehlbeit with that talent. Be it that you're an artist and you can paint the most incredible, vivid, emotional images of Kerbala, or, you know, can capture titles of Imam Ali and incorporate it within a picture, or be it the shrines, whatever you can do, ensure that you're serving the Shia community and the Ehlbeit with your talent. So I felt, you know, the poetry and the recitation, that's just something to try and influence other people and try and inspire others to bring it up, because those are the people that have the talent. For me, I felt the public speaking was the key area, and in the past couple of years, alhamdulillah, I've been given the opportunity to kind of get on the lectern and get on the podium and give lectures. And I think the difference was that people were in need of foundations again, of akhlaq, essential necessities, because I've always had this mindset that there's no point in you knowing all of the names of the A'imma and all of their birth dates and all of their death dates and their wives' names and their daughters' names if you're the first one that's going to drop their crisp packet on the floor, if you're the first one that's going to raise their voice at their parents. So I felt there was a kind of gap that needed to be filled, which was a fundamental, basic foundation recap. So be it on how to speak to your parents, be it on how to treat your friends, be it on how to treat your brothers, be it on our responsibility that the Ahlbeit have bestowed upon us, be it on how to treat the general public, absolute core basics. I felt there was a gap there, and I just, you know, tried to start speaking, and alhamdulillah, people said they were influenced, God knows to what extent, but I felt that was one area where I was able to kind of assist the Shia community in a basic format. Religion gives us a guidance, a way to live. I almost see it as like literally a manual. What can I can't do when I enter the library? I can't talk, I can't eat, I can't drink, I can work. The same way with religion, It's a guide. I can't do this, I can't do this. I have to do this, I have to do that. And this, you can or can't do. It's up to you. So I see religion as a guide, but it's a guide to excellence. And it has amazing role models who have implemented religion within their lives and become some of the most memorable and greatest people that have ever lived on this world. So by using religion and trying to make sure it influences my life, and indeed my family, ensuring that I was instilled with some sort of religion within me, I think it gives you that pathway, how to strive towards excellence, which is our eventual aim in anything that we do. Initially, when I was younger, I knew I was a Muslim. I knew I was Shia. My parents would pray, my brother would pray, I became baligh, I would pray, I would go to the madrasa, would have a Quran teacher at home, alhamdulillah. But I think until I was about 12, 13, did I start to really realise how important this was. But equally, I hadn't been through life's spell yet. So again, I started to drift away from religion, kept the wajibat, but wasn't really interested. And then kind of came back and go and come back. And then eventually I got to college and I realised, this is pretty important. I think it's mainly when the A-levels kind of kick in and you get stressed with exams, you look to something to help you. And you look to your mum and she can make the food for you, she can pat you on the back, but she can't help you with your maths because she never did it. And maybe I can go to my brother because he did it a few years before, but who can actually help me on the day of my exam? And then you think, well, there's got to be something out there, and it ends up being God. And once you realise that, you then turn the table, and instead of going to God when you last need him, you go to God from the start. So when you need to, do well in a job interview, don't go straight onto your computer and start preparing. Start by asking God for help, then start your preparation. It changes the cycle. So as a result, throughout my life, there on in, which is 3-4 years on now, with this attitude and with this acknowledgement of God, I think, and religion as a whole, I think I've been able to kind of channel my efforts in the right way. So when I've been trying to seek a goal or an eventual aim, be it getting into university or obtaining my degree or whatever it may be, I knew what my restrictions were. I couldn't cheat someone in order to get there. I couldn't bribe someone to give me good results. I could only live by the code of conduct that I've given. And I imagine from when I get my degree and I leave university and I go into the world of work where it's much more cutthroat, that's where these guidelines will be even more important. I'd have to be very specific to them and they'll keep me intact the whole way, I hope. My greatest achievement, I think, would be turning my life around for the better in terms of religion. As I mentioned, I was instilled with religion, but it all kind of fell into place come, college time, even first year university, even the end of first year university. I'd say that moment where I was able to actually stand up and look at myself and say, you know what, you've accomplished something, and that something was changing my mindset on life as a whole, bringing God into my life a hell of a lot more, and using the perfect 14 Aleyhim Assalam as my guides. And I think for me, that would probably be my most successful accomplishment. And the way in which I managed to get there, I think boils down to the various other things that I've done, be it the academic work within college and university, be it the poetry, the little poetry that I do and the recitations, be it the lecturing, whatever it is. I think all of these different factors played together to eventually lead me to being able to change everything around. Because if I hadn't have done that, I think, the path is here and I would have just kept going astray and astray and astray. And I'd say that's probably my proudest achievement, because it's not only an achievement for this life, but it's of course one for the next. And the greatest thing about this is that it's not just a tick off the list like obtaining A-levels is. It's something that gets ticked over and over again throughout your life, but the tick gets bigger because the whole concept of bringing religion within you and acknowledging God and accepting God and letting God be proud of you is something that can further day by day the stronger your faith becomes. Giving advice to anyone is always a big responsibility, because if your advice goes wrong, if they implement it and then they go wrong, it's somewhat on your head. So when I give advice, I'm usually very careful about what I say, but it usually follows a similar pattern. And for those youngsters who are in the West, I don't know about the East, I've never lived there. I don't think going there for a month counts, as living. So for those in the West, the advice I'd give to them is stay as strong as possible and stay as connected as you can with your family and with God. So long as you remember that God is there and that you have your parents with you, what will then happen is that when you receive when you go through a setback or you make a big mistake, you go to a party, you drink alcohol, you do drugs, whatever it is, because everyone has a mistake. It can even be something as simple as telling a lie. If you have that remembrance of God in your head, knowing, not even praying, but even knowing that He exists and being certain of it, so long as you have that in your head and you're still close with your family will then start to bring you back to God. They'll act as almost like God's messengers bringing you back. So in terms of receiving a setback, that would be my advice to them. Ensure through everything they do, they have that. And even when they do something good, when they obtain incredible grades, when they open up a business and become one of the best businessmen in the world, when they write their first poem, when they get on the minbar for the first time, whatever it is, so long as they remember God and they have their family, they will never ever go wrong, because there's always that connection. When it's bad, like we explained before, you'll be pulled back. And when you do something good, you'll thank God and you'll thank your mother and your father and obviously your siblings. And when you do that, you get closer with your family, you get closer to God, and you become one stronger unit as a whole. And I've been through it myself. I went through spells where I lost God, where I lost my family. Where you just become a teenager and you're like, oh, I can't be bothered with this, I can't be bothered with that. But then you reflect, you look back, and you see what brought you back. Because one interesting thing that I found within youngsters is that when I was in my high school, I had a hugely diverse year group. We had, some of the smartest students that I've ever come across in my life who went off to Oxford and Cambridge to study, physics and economics and everything. And we had other students who weren't as able, who have gone, left school early but have gone on to do great things. But there was always those who just weren't interested, who were just there to mess around, who were the first ones in trouble. And whenever you look at them and you speak to them and you ask, are you going home right now? No, I'm not going home. Why not? Oh, I don't like my family. And it's like, okay, are you going to go to church or mosque? Oh, I don't believe in religion. There's always those two things that they never have. But those who were more successful, if you like, and who got on with work, and even those who didn't academically achieve but went on to open up their own garage or whatever it is, they always had something. It would either be family, it would either be religion, or just a set way of life. They would have something there to keep them intact. So my advice to the youngsters is, for us, we have religion, and inshallah we still have family. So hold on to both of them as much as possible, because when you go wrong, they'll pull you back. And when you do something good, they'll keep you level-headed. Motivation differs depending on what you need to motivate the person for. If you need to motivate them to become the best businessman, it's very different to motivating them if they want to become the best academic scholar within Shia Islam. It's a very different method of approach. However, what's beautiful about our religion is that we have the 14 divine guides who are role models for every single part of our life. And obviously not just the Ahlbeit Alaihissalam and the Ma'sumin, but indeed some of their family members as well, that may not be included in the numerical count, but are still of such significance, like Sayyidah Zainab Salamullahi Alayha. So let's say, for example, you wish to motivate someone who wishes to become the best businessman. Then you look to who? You look to Sayyidah Khadija Salamullahi Alayha, who was one of the best merchants of her time. If you want to become the best scientist, you look to Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, our holy sixth Imam, who proved wrong Aristotle's theory of the four elements, which at the age of 12 he did that. which is, unfathomable. If you want to look to someone who is the most generous person, one of the most generous people to have ever lived, you look to Kareem Ahlbeit, Imam al-Hassan. If you want to look to someone who suffered yet still managed to come through and make an impact, you look to Imam al-Kazim. If you want someone who was put in a strange land and still was able to become an incredible person, Imam al-Ridha. The list, each of these infallibles and their family members, they've got such incredible attributes to them that when you find out what you want, you can then look to one of them, probably even all of them, but you can look to one of them who's most famous for it and connect with them and learn from them. And they should be our motivation. And I hand on heart say this, during my time at university, it's been very difficult. Studies-wise, it's been the most academically demanding time I've ever been through in my life. But always asking through the intercession of the two people that established universities, Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq, alayhim السلام, asking through those two Imams has made things so much more easier at points. Results come out a lot better because they're taking care of it. They're the headmasters, they're the deans of these universities. And using them and looking at their stories and the way they worked, that's what motivates you, because then you say, I want to be like them. I know I won't reach that level, but I want to be like them. And they've got a clear, we've got a clear common objective with one of these infallibles, and we can connect to that. So in terms of motivating, I'd say use the A'imma. But obviously some people will equally say, we need other sorts of motivation, and that's fair enough. And I think that motivation needs to come from serving your family. Because when you look to your family and you see how much they've given to you, the last thing you want to do is disappoint them and let them down, especially when they've given you everything and you come back and you're like, oh, I failed this. Use your family as motivation, your brother, your mother, your father. Use your friends as motivation. If you see them doing well, wish them well. Tell them, amazing, you're doing incredibly well. Use them and try and get motivated with them. Try and get up to speed with them. And equally, the contrary occurs, where if someone else looks to you for motivation, pick them up and take them with you, because there'll always be a time where you need it. And if you haven't offered that person their help, then someone else may not offer you the help that you then require. So I think use the A'imma, use your family, use your friends, but ultimately, in everything that we do, we're serving Allah. If there's something that we're doing that isn't fi sabilillah, then there's no point in doing it. From studying, you do it fi sabilillah because you want to become a competent human being who can then serve in the Imam's army and become his general. If you become an economist, you can be the one who's in charge of his resources, where to allocate them. If you want to become the best jurist, then of course he'll need people to spread the message for him in different areas. Whatever, if a sports star, then you can be on the front line in his army. Whatever it is, serve fi sabilillah and know the greater goal, and that'll be your motivation. Whatever someone wishes to accomplish, I believe there's a formula that they need to have within them. And it consists of 3 P's, the letter P. Let me start again. With anything anyone wishes to accomplish, I believe there's 3 factors that they must have incorporated within that dream or goal that they have. And it consists of 3 letters, PCP. The first one stands for passion. When you have a passion for something, you won't let it go no matter what. If you have a passion to support a football team, no matter what the results are, if you lose 40 games in the season on the trot, because you have a passion and a burning love, you won't give it up. And the same is with our work, if we're reciting, if we're filming, whatever we're doing. If we have the passion, not only will we withstand, but we'll also go further with it because we enjoy it as well. So that's the first one, passion, that's the P. The second letter, C, which is competency. Ensure that in the goal that you wish to achieve, that you're competent in doing so. It's all well and good saying, I want to become the best mathematician on the earth, but if you don't understand what the letter X is in algebra, you're not going to get anywhere. You need to be competent in it, and you can develop competency. because you can pick up a book and you can study and you can become competent. But in order to become competent, you have to initially have a passion, which we first mentioned. So having a passion for it will drive you to then become competent. But in order to become competent, you also need to persevere. And that's the third letter. Passion, competency, and perseverance. And when you persevere with it, it ties in with passion, in that you'll keep going. You'll get a question wrong. Because of your passion, you'll stand up, you'll do it again. You'll be aware that you're competent enough to do it, so you'll persevere with it. You'll get it wrong again, you'll start again, until you get it right, and then you're even more competent than beforehand. So you try a tougher question, and your passion drives you to do that tougher question, and you persevere with it till you get it right, and the cycle starts again. So for any ambition, with any dream, with any goal that we wish to achieve, I believe those three facets have to be present. Passion, competency, and perseverance. And that's one thing, if anything they take away, if the viewers take away from this, it's those three letters, inshallah. And just to end on somewhat of a happy note, I wish to just deliver a brief poem about a man who illustrated these characteristics of passion, competence, perseverance for the sake of Allah. And this is about Imam Rida, alayhi salam, our holy 8th Imam. It says, upon entering Mashhad, I could smell the sweetness of the air. Upon entering Mashhad, I could smell the sweetness of the air. Upon entering Mashhad, I could sense Musa al-Kadhim's air. Ultimately, I was presented with Rida's fragrance within the air. Millions travel to his shrine, more than the droplets from the rain. The people visit their king, for he has an everlasting reign. Be sure that his love dampens the heart more than waters dampened by the rain. In the holy shrine, the millions gather in their never-ending rows. In the holy shrine, the millions gather in their never-ending rows, all waiting to send their salutations upon this beautiful rose. And just seconds later, you look around and in awe of this man, millions rose. A sweet bird-like singing voice, I truly wish I could acquire. And I promise if I had this voice, I'd sing your praises like a choir, in the hope that your merits and attributes just one day I could acquire. Just being in Mashhad, I had a feeling from Rida, and I could sense that there was a person I was missing. I had not been treated to her sense. I then discovered Sayyida Ma'asuma, and then everything else made sense. And you'd think from being so oppressed that their message would become faint. However, upon visiting these two personalities, in admiration, I felt faint. Did we ever doubt Ali Muhammad's message would ever become faint? They flocked to his shrine to experience tranquility and peace. They yearn to take home some marble from there, even just one piece, but ultimately they wait for Rida's grandson to bring eternal peace.